about 5 minutes, Duncan from Aikido Silverdale will be joining, and we will resume the Aikido slash Aikijitsu weekend. So cool how that turned out, and no doubt we will ramble on about a bunch of stuff, just like yesterday with Robert Silas, and it's gonna be so much fun. And yeah, I'll see if anybody joins before him. If you do, ask any questions, and probably like yesterday, like the last stream, we're gonna answer the questions in the end. But if something particularly catches the eye, and we're gonna be talking, so we won't want to disrupt the flow of the conversation. So we will probably respond to them at the end of the stream. But again, we can always it's just informal, and however it goes, it goes. That's so far how I've been doing these, and so far it seems cool and fun. All right, here he is. Boom. Boom. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Perfectly.
Perfect. Welcome, sir. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good. It's early in the morning here, and it's late at night with you, as often happens with these
Right.
things across the world. But I'm glad you're well. You've got a green screen. I expect to see things superimposed on it. You know, people flying around or people getting rear naked choked or something.
I can do that probably after the stream is done. I can maybe switch it and have fun with that. So that's always an
Okay.
option. Yeah.
Very
Well,
good.
welcome. This is pleasure and an honor to have you. We spoke briefly about doing this, and no doubt we're gonna resume and have so many cool, intricate conversations about all things Aikido and martial arts in general. But before we start, I tend to do this where it's like you can just quickly tell everybody we got two people already, so that's awesome. Just who you are, what you do, and a bit about yourself, and then we'll just jump into rambling on about martial arts.
Okay. My name's Duncan Francis. I am. I started Aikido in 1974, I think, as a kid, under Sensei Hayden Foster, who was a student of Kenshiro Abbey. So basically, the first dojo in the UK, the first Aikido dojo in the UK, was at the end of my road. Basically, so it was an old barracks building, an old shed, basically, with straw tatami mats on the floorboards. And over the years, the floor had rotted, so various people had crawled underneath and put beer crates and piles of bricks and stuff. So you learned to roll pretty good, pretty quickly, because it was hard. And also, some parts of the floor were really springy, and some were like concrete. So you learned which, if you were being thrown around, you learned which bits to avoid quite quickly. Yeah, so I started when I was about 9, something like that. So I guess Iwama would be the nearest style you'd say is what I did. Saito Sensei and my sensei were in contact quite a lot, and we followed his weapon system quite strictly. I've always been around other martial artists from other styles. It just seems that whatever club I've trained at or wherever I've been, there's been people there that were Udansha from other arts. And for me, that's always been fascinating because if you've seen any of our videos, my thing is the biomechanics. I find that absolutely fascinating. I did a few years of modified Wing Chun when I was or just after I was at university. I think my memory is terrible. I'm sorry. And that was also fascinating. Loved that a lot. And I immigrated to New Zealand about 20 years ago and set up a club here, and then slowly an organization kind of evolved. It's the Institute of Aikido International, but that was because initially there was a bunch of Aikido clubs that were on the periphery didn't want to join up and send lots of money to Japan for seemingly very little benefit. And we all kind of just got together just for a bit of mutual support. And we started doing twice yearly seminars, 4-day ones in the summer, 2 or 3-day ones in the winter. And we would invite anyone that had a reputation of being good. It didn't matter whether they were ninjutsu or boxing or kickboxing, taekwondo, the various styles of jiu-jitsu. And it just blossomed into this wonderful thing now where we've got an organization. We've got clubs in about 7 or 8 different countries around the world. I think we've got 10 different martial arts represented. And it's fabulous. You can travel anywhere in those countries and just flick them an email and say, hi, I'm from this club in the group. Do you mind if I come and train with you? And, people make new friends and they train together and they all go out and have a beer, apparently. It's fabulous. It's absolutely great. And the one thing that everybody keeps saying over and over again after a couple of decades of doing this is that ultimately it's all the same. It doesn't matter whether you've got a Chinese martial art that is talking about the flow of stuff, and you've got a Japanese martial art that's basically saying numbers, or you've got a westernized one that's more a sport, or you've got something very, very traditional and romantic like the ninjutsu guys. It's all basically the same. We've got 2 arms, 2 legs, and a spine.
Yes.
Dress it up how you want, and the thing that I have learnt over that time, I think the major thing for me is that there are certain techniques or certain biomechanical processes that exist in almost every art.
Yes.
And for me, those must therefore be the reliable ones. And I understand that some arts have got their specializations. Taekwondo has got the big high kicks, etc., etc. But it's almost like they are to just demonstrate the extremities of their style and the capabilities of what their style can do. The massive, complicated, flowy Aikido things and stuff. It's fine, but it's a demonstration of principle. When you actually get down to it, it's my belief now that we almost don't need to define martial arts. My particular group or my club is Aikijitsu because we have a more functional approach maybe than traditional Aikido.
Right.
Some of the more formalized attacks we just no longer do. We do a little bit of groundwork. We formally train. We do bag work. My guys punch and kick, and and we train things like de-escalation and body language and things like that. Because the world has changed. Aikido's roots were in stopping people taking a sword off you on the battlefield, or taking someone's sword off them. The chances of that happening in the central business district of Auckland are fairly slim. So it's it is what it is. But I almost think when people say, "Oh, Aikido's this or Judo's that or MMA's that," I think it's almost a pointless argument, and quite often just reveals the lack of understanding for the people making the comments. And I know it's a bit of a rude, broad scope, but there's some, I know some Tai Chi people that would, there's a Tai Chi guy in particular who he would destroy most martial artists I know. He's a monster of a guy. He's phenomenally strong. His timing and his balance is superb, but also he's a fighter. He was a fighter. Now, the fact that he's a Tai Chi guy instantly brands him as being, standing in the park with a lot of old ladies. And it's just, we should be looking at what people are doing rather than the label they're calling it. That's the daft thing. Yeah. But anyway, so that's kind of my that's kind of my background, and I'm an old bugger now, but I'm still absolutely ridiculously excited every time I see something that I've missed before, or we've got a gentleman, a British martial artist that lives over here that does a couple of styles of jiu-jitsu, and he will never let us film him because of the styles he does. Their style won't allow it, which I completely respect. That's fine. And he'll often show something from a historical standpoint as well as from a biomechanical, point. He goes into great detail, and just the odd little historical thing has enabled me to link up how techniques were born, what they're originally used for, and how they might be being used now, or quite often misinterpreted. And that kind of stuff is just fabulous. For me, that's fabulous because it gives you an idea of how the things first came about, the need that drove those techniques to be, and therefore the underlying principle that makes those techniques function, which is, that to me is fabulous. So
Right. And I have to just right away, like it's like you're saying the same stuff that we often, like, well, not even often, all the time, because one of the funniest like mantras of this like martial geeks thing that we're doing is like fighting looks like fighting. And it's such a funny statement where it's like, no shit. But it feels like sometimes it really needs to be said, like where you mentioned how like it all breaks down and just becomes fighting, and that's really the case. And all the styles have their own specific thing, but if we talk about complete fighting, it's always going to look pretty much the same. We know what fighting looks like at this point. So
yeah,
I
absolutely.
just had to comment on that one because
No, absolutely. And we've got a YouTube channel which was initially set up for me just to put up our technical reference videos for the new people. And then, of course, the less new people say, "Oh, do you remember that thing you showed a while back? That can you put that up as a video?" So we were training, and I'll grab a camera and then started videoing the seminars. So you've got all these interesting people showing stuff, and especially if we have a theme, you'll get different martial artists all showing their ideas on that theme from a different martial arts perspective. And you just open a can of worms. So I think we've got like 460 videos or something now. It's just, what it's like when you start doing something. And the comments, people see the word Aikido in the channel, and you get the normal trolling that the internet's the internet, and it's like, oh, that wouldn't work in MMA.
yeah.
And quite often it's right. Of course it wouldn't work in MMA. It's kata. In the
Right.
same, in the same way that BJJ guys doing you know a guard to
A
escape
worm
drill. Yeah, that kind of thing doesn't help anybody. And I think the nice thing to see is there's more and more people like yourself coming through, if you don't mind me saying, the youngsters coming through who are being more broad-minded about things and trying to take information from everywhere. So like a cross-training mindset, even if you're not necessarily cross-training, which is, for me, that's going to be the future of martial arts. I can't see how it cannot be. And there's a lot of wonderful things with traditional martial arts. The kata and the history and all the culture that comes with each art is lovely, but they also bring with them some major failings, which, because of the nature of human greed and personality, once you get someone that's high up in an art and they're getting money from all the students, it's very easy for that to get corrupted. And I've seen it over and over again. Our organization, one of the primary things, we have no money involved whatsoever. The only time any money changes hands is when we hold a seminar. Whoever's hosting the seminar gets a mat fee, because obviously it costs something to put it on. But there's no membership fees. There's no, the website gets funded by a couple of us that just chip in. But it's not, because the minute you've got insurance tickets coming through and someone's clipping the ticket, and then you've got membership fees, and someone somewhere is basically getting money. And greed distorts stuff. It's awful. So we've bypassed that. The I've seen a couple of things with Japanese martial arts is what I've been mainly involved in, and I've seen a couple of things over the years that are fatal flaws, I think, in the structure. So within Aikido, there's a thing called the soke system, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, where basically the head of the style passes on the style to the oldest son.
Ah,
So Sensei died and the son took over, then the grandson, then the great grandson. This is ludicrous.
right.
My dad was a great trumpet player. I can't get a note out of it. He was a great golfer. I wouldn't know which end to hold the club.
Exactly.
It's ludicrous. When O Sensei passed away, there were probably 3, maybe 4 superbly talented people that could have succeeded him. And I know that it never ever works because the other people think they should have done it. And I've seen that happen many times, including my own organization in the UK. Everyone just argues about it. But there were far, far better qualified people technically to take over. And what you got was a clever guy that tried to spread the art and systemize things. And he did a great job considering. But if you look at the state of Aikido now, coming from Hombu, coming from the Aikigai, it's awful.
Right.
And I get all sorts of hate for this, but it's not very good at all. The senior technical people just aren't very good. I'm not saying that there aren't some good people. There are, but they're not the people making the decisions.
Right.
And it's in every art. I've seen it in karate, Shotokan karate. I've seen it in judo even, which is you get these guys that were good at competition and then they get old and they get fat and they kind of lose their way a bit. And ITF and IWF taekwondo stuff happened there. It goes on and on and on, and I mean, this Aikido, especially because obviously that's my, that's the field I'm deeply involved in. But there's some very, very senior ranks around the world at the moment that are. And the problem with the internet, of course, is that you're putting stuff up on video, so it's there forever. And I've seen some stuff in the last couple of years that I rewatched like half a dozen times. I think, am I missing something? Because there was a seventh dan basically showing an absolutely basic body movement, a taisabaki, a basic body movement drill, something you would teach a white belt. And the taisabaki in Aikido are fundamental because decent body movement and balance and stuff is fundamental to be able to develop that whole blending, flowing thing, which is integral to the art. And it was incorrect. She was describing it wrongly and doing it wrongly. She obviously had no concept of the actual. So she'd been mistaught.
Yeah.
And this is an older lady. So it suggests to me she was taught this by her sensei. So I'm guessing 30, 40, 50 years ago. That's awful. That's so awful. And it happens. It happens. And it wasn't just like, I'm just looking at the credits. The comments. Someone said, people that make mechanical errors. Yeah. Hello, Grip Academy. It wasn't an error. She was doing something very well and very accurately, but it wasn't what she was saying it was. She was doing a poor leg sweep kind of movement, which was unbalancing her, but she was saying it was something else. I don't want to go into too big. I've already got in so much trouble for that video, but but this is the issue, and once people get to a stage where they're responsible for a downline, which if you keep going in an art, I mean, I was chatting to my old mate Bob Mustard on one of the podcasts we did, and he said if you want to be seventh dan in Aikido, just don't die.
Wow.
And unfortunately, that's right. Unfortunately, that is right. And in Yoshinkan, they've even got a thing on the website now where you can just apply for sixth dan and you send them some cash, and it's not far off that. But yeah, and it's not just Yoshinkan. It's the same. If enough people say, "Oh yeah, he's been around a long time," you can pay for a certificate from somewhere, and it's just.
Oh, good.
I mean, it is worrying. So I hope that with the freedom of information we've got now, with people like yourselves putting stuff out there with and questioning stuff and playing around with stuff, and with you can search like how to get out of a headlock and you'll get 30 videos, and you can spend an hour watching videos, making notes, and you'll realize that there are 2 or 3 more commonly used ones that seem to make more sense. There'll be some stupid ones, people dressed in, in black with headbands on, doing, or doing that with the finger. Any martial arts video where they do that with the finger, delete as fast as you can. And there is so much information out there now, so much, that we should be we should be able to filter what we're doing. And for me, if you're in if I was just starting a martial arts now, I say this to all the teenagers I've got in the group. If you're interested in learning something specifically, or you've got a situation you're worried about, or there's you should be able to talk to your instructor about it. I always say to them, whatever it is, talk to me about it, because if I don't know, I'll find out, and we'll work it. Because everybody's view of the reality around them is different. You might have someone that's naturally shy. You might have someone that's naturally emotionally reacts to stuff. You might have someone that's got a long reach, someone that's short and stocky. But it's also just how people see the world.
Right.
If you've been teaching for a long time, I teach quite a lot of kids with special needs, and it's just one of those things that's happened. You get a kid that's on the what I used to say on the spectrum, but ASD or whatever it is, and you manage to you find a way of working together, and then they'll have a friend and they'll have a friend, and you end up and it ends up being a thing, and it's fine. It's as fascinating for me as it is, and it's just seeing how some of those kids, and even some of the adults, how they see the reality of the thing we're doing from such a different standpoint, that also is astonishing. That's fascinating. And I can't help but thinking all the times I've got angry at people in traffic. If I could have been in their car while they were doing the stupid thing they were doing, cutting me up or pulling in front of me and braking, I may have seen that from a different viewpoint, and there may have been from their reality, there may have been some justification from it. It's really helped me to kind of broaden my acceptance of stuff around me and try and do that. I noticed when you were speaking to that gentleman the other day, he said something that I use all the time, the BMW thing: breathe, move, and whatever it is. Yeah, basically, yeah. What's BMW? So it's early in the morning.
And for me, it's too late to remember.
Yeah, it's late for you. Yeah, breathe, move, and wait. But just that whole thing of calming your nervous system down, giving yourself some space, and trying to use your peripheral vision and trying to take all the information in you can, so that your risk assessment is as effective as possible. Because it is so easy for someone to say something that triggers you. It presses one of your buttons, and before you know it, you're into it, and once you've thrown that first punch, or they have, it's very, very hard to come back from that.
Right. I really enjoy. If I'm not cutting you off, I really enjoy one of the shorts where you were talking about de-escalating the situation, and how that it's not like hands in the air like the alpha male thing. It's like entering a classroom full of annoying kids. Like, calm down, guys. That's one.
I was always taught the classic kind of Aikido, hands up, protecting the center. It's a classic martial art answer. The problem with that nowadays is that everybody owns a phone. And if you're a teenager at school and someone's bullying you, and they come up to you and they're starting to get in your space and stuff, and you put your hands up into like a martial arts stance, even if they're the aggressor and they throw a few punches, if you're lucky enough to smack them into the floor and they hit their head, all their friends have got their cameras out. And in 6 months' time or a year's time, when that comes to court, all anyone can remember was the martial arts kid smacked that kid into the floor. They forget everything else. So the visual appearance of things is critical. So our basic on-guard stance now is that hands up, so it looks like you're trying to de-escalate. Your body language is obviously saying, calm the fuck down, and that's basically it. Because it's so easy to go from there to drop your chin and go into like a spear. and then you're ready to go.
Everything's
Conversion from one to the other, and it's just body language. And I have no idea why anyone nowadays, knowing the prevalence of CCTV and cameras everywhere, why anyone else, why you would have a stance that's anything other than that.
right. It's so critical, really, and it's interesting how even that sort of destroys the whole notion of, like, when we were talking about these being broad concepts and like labels being super hard to really pin down, because it's us who are humans who are quantizing and trying to describe things.
Yeah.
But it is what it is naturally, and it sort of destroys the whole this self-defense versus this self-defense versus this self-defense, where this is the best martial art for self-defense, our stance is this is the best self-defense, our stance. And no stance in that sense means anything, and that destroys the whole, like, the traditional baggage like you mentioned. Like, this is a stance to me. This is MMA, this is boxing, this is Aikido, this is Wing Chun, this is this is everything. It's just principles of, okay, I'm covering up, I'm here, I'm there, I can do all this stuff. And if somebody's filming, like you said, calm the fuck down, and that's it. So you already break that barrier.
The other well is that you have to accept that if you're going to be a martial artist, if you're going to consider yourself a martial artist, you will be training all of your life. You can't just get to the stage of you get your black belt or your second dan, and then you start teaching, and then you just start reteaching what you were taught 100 times, and you never go any further. And you let yourself get out of shape, and you get, I mean, I'm 60 and I do strength work every day. I'm not super fit, but I make a real effort to stay as sharp as I can, because if you get in trouble, you can't rely on some magic wand protecting you just because you know some stuff. If someone's bigger and faster and stronger than you, then you're already at a disadvantage. 10 kilos, I think it was Hickson Gracie that said 10 kilos is the same as like 5 years of training. And I reckon that's about right. That's why all competitive sport martial arts have a 10 kilo, 5 kilo, whatever division, because it just makes so much difference. And what you were saying about certain arts being better and all that kind of stuff. Even certain techniques within an art. So I've got a group, kind of my Q grade group at the moment, and there's a lot of them that are the kind of darker belts. They're on their way to Shodan. So pretty much all of them have got a background in other martial arts. There's a jiu-jitsu lady, there's a ex-kickboxer, taekwondo guy. We've got a couple of karate guys. One guy's a judo, karate and judo. So they've all got some other experience, and we can be doing, a fairly simple rest and control technique against a straight punch or a jab or something, and I'll end up showing 3 or 4 different variations, because one guy's 6'3", the other lady is quite petite and doesn't have the body mass to destabilize with just momentum. The other guy's much older and he's solid as a rock, so he can't move as fast. And just, so it will be ostensibly the same principle, but it'll have to be executed in a very, very different way. And that's another thing that, it's no good just all copying sensei, because unless you're all sensei's identical twin and you're going to live the same life as him, it's pointless. And this is another issue I have with the insistence on traditional arts of, I got turned down for a rank once, quite a senior rank, because I didn't have my toe pointed in a certain direction.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Needless to say, we left that organization fairly soon afterwards. But I mean, to be fair, there was more to it than that, I suspect. But that was the excuse that was proffered. But it's an example of the kind of thing that does happen. I've seen taekwondo gradings where there's 100 people in the room all standing there doing the same thing, and there's a couple of people on a trestle table just looking down disinterestedly, and then they sit down for an hour and then they get up and do something. I mean, it's
right. And the funniest part to me is, especially in like kata heavy martial arts like taekwondo, like karate, maybe even like sport jiu-jitsu has like adopted the karate stuff and stuff like that, where you have like kata performances in like seminars and competitions and this and that. When you have a large amount of people doing the karate katas and this and that, and all in unison, and it all looks beautiful, and they're doing exactly the same thing, but they're all at different shapes. Then you watch them fight, and even if it's just point karate, they're all fighting differently. They all have even
which is how it should be. Yeah, and I understand the need for kata if you're teaching very big groups, because it's the only way of safely doing stuff and making sure everyone's at least following a thing. I have a very big group sometimes of homeschool kids that I teach during the day, and there'll be a big difference in age as well, and you have to do things by the numbers to a certain extent just to make sure there's some safety, and at least the core ideas are getting in. So I do get that. Just looking at in the chat,
Mhm.
Grick Academy says I'm converting to Yoshinkan. Yeah, that's probably one of the better. Well, there's me saying don't broadly describe styles. Overall, I think Yoshinkan guys are a little bit more practically focused. However, still has that Aikido thing of Yokomen and Shomen. So it will be largely down to the dojo you find. See, for me, if I had to start from scratch, if there was a zombie apocalypse and civilization was rebuilding, uh, I would be looking at dojos. It's probably a bad example. There wouldn't be dojos, would there? Just be people killing zombies. But how do we get into zombies? For me, it's about the culture of the dojo and the instructors, also in the junior instructors that will teach on the mat as well. It's the culture of that's important, not the art.
Right.
So it could be a boxing club, it could be BJJ, it could be Silat, it could be whatever Lethway, whatever dojo it is. If the thing fits what you want from martial arts and you like the people, that's more important than you going to a Aikido dojo.
Right. Right. It was for the sixth dan, says Matt from Grip Academy.
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Just fill out the form. Yeah. But yeah, I know that sounds awful, and obviously you do have to have someone. You do have to have a historical proof that you've been around long enough.
Right.
But it does seem to be a lot of the organisations now have got that kind of thing in place where if you're happy to send them the money. When I first came to New Zealand, excuse me, there was an American Aikido instructor that came over who's quite well known for having his own thing. He does this kind of Californian existentialist, psychoanalytic kind of stuff. He talks about how am I feeling and all this kind of stuff. It's a thing. It's fine. He's got his own thing. It doesn't do anything for me whatsoever. I went to a couple of his seminars, and I think he got a bit annoyed with me because I was kind of I stood there for an hour listening to him talk, and he went around the room and asked everyone questions, and everyone was kind of, I don't know, and I just anyway, yeah. but he systematically signed up because he's linked to Aikikai, so he's a senior. He's linked to the official Japanese. He signed up so many of the waifs and strays, the independent dojos, and
Okay.
they paid a ridiculous amount of money. So there were people that were fifth dans at the time who, to get their fifth dan rank ratified by Japan, had to buy a first dan certificate, a second dan certificate, a third dan.
Oof.
So it was costing them thousands and thousands of dollars, basically just to have a piece of paper with a Japanese thing on it. And I was saying
Wow.
to these guys, you're insane.
Right.
You could put things in at the dojo and hang some heavy bags and, maybe even fit a shower. What are you doing?
Right.
But, yeah, and it's, this is the kind of stuff, and again, I'm using a specific example, but this is the kind of stuff that is happening all the time.
Yeah.
And I suspect it's not so much to do with martial arts per se, or a specific martial art. It's more to do with human failings, that we are naturally greedy, we're naturally insecure. So anything that builds our status up and all that kind of stuff is, it's just the way it is. But
Power corrupts.
yeah, it's yeah, the Californian Aikikai reps are pretty sad. Yeah, I mean, but again, say Richard Moon, who is, you could say, is in that group. He's a lovely guy, and he's, what I like about him is that he is doing that self-realization kind of self-observational thing, which is great. But he's absolutely upfront about it. There is no pretense that what he is doing is like a martial art per se.
Right.
Really, it's, for him, it's about the self-discovery and how you interact with other people. And fabulous. There's a guy in our group, Tony Shuffleberger, who's from the same background as me. Really, he's an Iwama guy. Very, very good. Really good guy. Great understanding. He really loves his biomechanics, but he frames things in a way that allows you to. It's more about the relationship with the space around you and other people. So he's got a thing called quiet confidence, and he goes and talks to business groups and stuff like that, and he uses those principles. It's really interesting, but he's being upfront about it. It's not particularly my thing, although I do admire it. But he's absolutely upfront about it, which is fabulous. The thing that disturbs me is when you get, I mean, again, Aikido gets the clattering for it, which it probably should. The people calling themselves martial artists, and then you're looking at what they're doing, and you're thinking, okay, all these guys are wearing hakama, so I'm assuming they're Yudansha. None of these people can throw a punch.
Right.
And it's like, surely, martial obviously means warlike. But what's the most common thing you are going to encounter in a violent situation? It's going to be someone trying to punch you in the head. If you can't punch, or at least understand the basics of distance and timing and stuff like that, and also faced something. I mean, this is something I posted the other day: emotional content. People are friendly on the mat, and that's fine. But unless there's some actual emotional content in what's going on, the first time you experience that, people freeze.
Yep.
The fight and flight thing either gives them a big cortisol dump, and they can't do anything. The adrenaline kicks in, they can't use their fine motor skills, or they just like rub it in the headline.
And I was just gonna say, this just it brought me to a YouTube short I just recently watched, and it made me think, and it just all clicked. This is I think a perfect example personally where I started thinking about that, like emotional content specifically, was, I think it was a short where some like road rage person attacked a guy and his girlfriend on a motorbike, but he had like a GoPro thing, and the guy, I think the guy that was attacked was probably trained in something, and he took him down, and the camera, because he took him down, he was, I think, mounted. You could see, like, just like I am here now, hitting the floor, and the guy's eyes were like of a rabid animal. And it's like, I've been in the ring, like I've fought and punched, and I was bloodied up and this and that, and I would never, none of my opponents looked that way, even though they're probably more dangerous than that guy. Just their emotional content, because they're martial artists, they're calculated. Even the guy, when I was punching him down on the bottom, it's like, okay, I'm getting punched, I'm getting out of the position. You know how to manage that adrenaline and all that's happening. But just seeing that guy that's furious and just like ready to kill, being detained, he's not dangerous at this moment, but just the eyes, that, I have to say, that didn't feel right. I felt like, "Ugh," that it just looks wrong. And imagine if you're not trained at all in like emotional content side, where somebody's being aggressive, even just talking, like people tend, like most people, it's uncomfortable, you don't like it. So how would you even know how to respond if you're in a real world attack? Maybe.
This is the thing with Ki. Ki used to be trained a lot, and you see people doing it now, and you'll get the shout, but that was meant to be a uniform expression of your zanshin, of your intent. The
Right.
ki was meant, you'd hear O Sensei and various people from other martial arts talking about cutting people down with your ki. So you're projecting that intention to basically just take someone apart or to go through them, and it's my Sensei Foster, who was a very modest guy. He should have been far better known than he was. Amongst the UK people, he was very well respected, but he wasn't one of those people that put himself out there as the be all and end all, even though he was one of the original 6 in the UK that started Aikido in the late 50s. This was
Long time.
yeah. Kenshiro Abe, who was the famous story of the judo champion on the train that O Sensei pins with one finger. That was Kenshiro Abe. Yeah.
Oh,
He was sent to the UK, and he ended up living just around the corner from where I grew up. And the London Aikikai, or whatever it was called then, it was an old barracks building at the back of a pub, the Hut pub. And my sensei, Mr. Foster, he would, lovely guy, absolutely most authentic, genuine person ever. But occasionally he would do this thing where he would try to explain to you this idea about projecting your intention. So you'd go to cut him with a bokken or something, and he'd point his finger at you, and he'd be like, and it would just be this. We used to call it the finger of death, but it was even though you knew he wouldn't hurt you, it stopped you in your tracks. And it wasn't one of those cultish things where you see some of these guys that shout and people fall over, or some of these key guys that kind of do stuff with their hands and people jerk like they've had an electric shock or whatever. It wasn't that kind of where people have talked themselves into reacting to a stimulus that might not be there, shall we say. I'm trying to be polite. But he just had this way of projecting his intentions. The only word I can use. It was right away through you. You knew, and I've heard this from people that fight, that do MMA or whatever type of fighting. They've just got to have this idea in their heads that even if they're taking hits and even if they're it's not going well, they're still going to pull off the thing they're going for. If they're going, they're going to take the back and they're going to wrap up and they're going to go for a choke or something. Nothing's going to stop them doing it. They have to have that belief, but they've got to find a way of projecting that through their movements, and that's a fascinating thing. And again, if it's not trained, I'm constantly reminding my guys, because it's such a nice, you've got such a nice group of guys. Make sure that your attacks have some emotional content and are focused. It can still be 50%. You don't have to beat the living daylights out of each other, but it's got to have that thing where it's coming in with something so that you at least feel, if I don't move out of the way of this, it's going to hit me. And I occasionally will do that if we've got headgear on. I'll say hit me, and I won't move, just to see whether there's that thing to, you just drop your head, and if they hit you, they hit. But it has to be there, because it's no good pulling stuff,
Right.
Anyway, all I've done, when we're 40 minutes in, all I've done is complain and moan. I sound like an old woman.
No, it's awesome. I keep it informal, and it's just chatting and just talking about anything, so no worries at all. But we got a comment from Grip Academy from Matthew. So I'm late on this, but Richard Moon is a very sweet, and I learned how to teach rolling falls to elder students from Richard Moon. So there you go.
Richard's great biomechanics, and he's a lovely guy, lovely guy. I've trained with him a bunch of times. Not really had much interaction with him other than going to some of his sessions when he's been in New Zealand, and I think once in the UK. But really, really smart guy. Really kind of creative thinker. I like him a lot. It's again, his Aikido wouldn't necessarily be, from the martial side of things, wouldn't necessarily be something, but his approach to the interaction with reality, if we go back to that, I think is great.
Right. That's awesome.
So, But again, it depends on what you want. The stuff that fascinates me now, probably wouldn't have done when I was in my teens or 20s. I just
Right.
wanted to, throw people about and get sweaty and get in the pub afterwards. And it's kind of, so you have to accept that things mutate and change with age,
Um,
with environment, with culture. I mean, my Aikido changed in New Zealand. The minute I started looking at things much more practically, once I broke away from the group in the UK and started, okay, I don't have to do this syllabus now. There's no, there's no reason why we can't review this. And of course, New Zealand, by the time you're 6 months old, before you start kindergarten, you've already tried out for the All Blacks. I mean, this is the most rugby country in the world. If there's a fight in this country, at some point, someone will go and try and rugby tackle you. They'll go for a single or a double leg takedown, basically. And they'll hit you hard and efficiently. There's no bad rugby tackles in this country. I mean, there's 5 million people, and old people's homes. They still in scrums over their cake. It's
right.
like, so you have to learn how to deal with a and that's not in the Aikido syllabus. It's not in the traditional. So learning how to do an efficient sprawl isn't that isn't that
Right.
hard? Why isn't it in a syllabus? And that's kind of how that was one of the very first things that made us start to develop outside of the traditional thing. And of course, once you've added one thing in and people are enjoying it, then there's a guy called Mark Stewart, very, very talented karate guy, kind of Sabaki Do style. I believe he was world champion in the 90s, heavyweight world champion at some point, but lovely guy, really knows his stuff. Not, quite happy to share things. And he did a session at one of our seminars, and basically he was doing an identical technique to what we do in our syllabus, a version of a Rimanagi. I don't know what he called it, probably something completely different, but it was exactly the
There
same.
you go. Like one of
So
my favorite things, I mentioned it yesterday with Robert Silas, and I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing the guy's name correctly, but I think it's Mike Ninomiya, and he fought in like ancient karate, like the Sabaki challenge, and I always go back to this because there's a perfectly executed koregaeshi right there on film after a body kick. You're just like grabbing the lapel, body kick, koregaeshi, and down on the floor. And it's in the compilation of like best moments or something, and it's on YouTube. And there you go. Like you can call that Aikido, you can call that karate, you can call that judo, you can call it whatever, but it
yeah,
works. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And well, this is the thing. It worked in that situation,
right,
and this is the thing. That wouldn't work in MMA, or that wouldn't work in a fight. If I had a dollar for every time I'd had that on comment on one of our videos, um, you know, I could go and live in the Seychelles. It was
one of my if
the
I can
thing with MMA. Yeah, sorry, MMA is brilliant, and everybody should be training like that. Taking from all of the arts, learning a broad section of skills, getting fit, getting strong, putting stuff under pressure. It's perfect. But the ultimate thing people have got to realize is that it's still a sport. You've got
yes,
rounds, referees, and rules.
yes,
So it's not the same as a fight.
yeah,
This is the thing. As we've already talked about, fights are ugly, they're terrifying, you're probably not going to die in an MMA fight. I've no
right,
doubt that there's been some terrible accidents and there's,
yeah, of course, and it's dangerous, but it's not
medical
the
people, yeah. But in a fight, you can get hit from behind, you can fall and hit your head on the pavement and you're dead.
right.
This it's a completely different thing. I always say to my guys, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? What's the point of, unless you're a prison guard or a policeman, don't worry about the arrest and control stuff unless the situation was such that it was your only choice. Your only thing you're worried about is getting to a position of advantage or less disadvantage and going. Survival is all that we care about.
Right.
We're not trying to win belts or certificates or prizes or, you know, the only thing we care about is survival. And when you start thinking like that, everything changes.
And one of my probably favorite things I've heard, and I've heard it on with two different people. Spoke to Nick from One Man Stampede. He's a boxing coach and a BJJ guy from South Africa. And he's an
Okay.
awesome dude. But he and also the big channel Ramsey Dewey, he also mentioned it, where one thing that people almost always forget when they compare self-defense and MMA or a combat sport and a sport fight like that, it's that in self-defense you're trying to remove yourself from the danger. That danger is so danger two squared. It's like so dangerous that you want to remove yourself. While in sport, your whole goal is to fight. Like your whole goal is confined to a rule set and you fight. So like that's already a completely different thing. But then on the flip side of that, well, not really the flip side, but another point that also goes into play in the difference, it's like semantically we can just we if we want we can call an MMA fight a fight. It's just a confined to a rule set, and then this fight isn't confined to a rule set. And the thing that works in both places, that's the common denominator. But if I'm in a top mount in MMA, I'm probably gonna throw a few punches and the referee's gonna stop it. If I'm fighting for my life and it's either historical battlefield or whatever, from top mount you can gouge the eye, you can do this, you can do that. You're adding on top of it, but it's
Also,
not.
if you're in
It,
top mount, you could also get stabbed or kicked in the head by their friends that you didn't see,
exactly. That was the next point.
which won't
So
happen. Yeah.
the same things work in both places, but the whole concept and the whole context of it is much different, and that needs to be acknowledged if we're going to talk about like reality
Yeah.
situations or just getting hit at the back of the head, like how that changes everything. Like I've been a lot of times, so I love Jeet Kune Do stuff and I still explore Wing Chun to this day, and there's
Yeah.
so many opportunities to just hammer fist the back of the head billion times. And sure, you're not going to be able to land that if you don't have rudimentary grappling, like basic fighting stuff that you will do both in MMA or in a reality self-defense school that does it properly. But like in MMA, you can't touch this. It's not allowed. But absolutely, it's available if
Oh,
you were. It could change a lot if you were able to do stuff like that. So that
for
and
sure.
I'd
And
even make
yeah,
an argument
yeah.
that that would be better than groin kicking and eye gouging. I feel like hitting the back of the head could be even more reliable than those two things. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, eye gouges you would only do if your hands were already there,
yeah,
which is one of the reasons I favour a palm heel striking, because for my skill set, you know, if I hit someone with knuckles, especially as a musician, I mean, look at the state of this finger already. You know, it's um, if you hit someone, you know, hard hit soft. Obviously, if it's going to be something soft, I'll use a fist. Otherwise, I'm going to use a palm heel because I like the transition from that then to a grab. That for
and this
me that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you hit someone's head, you're going to break fingers, you know, and it's but if you've already struck and you're holding on, then you've got the opportunity for the eyes and stuff. Groin kicks, you're just as likely to miss. Someone's wearing jeans or something, you're just as likely to hit them in the leg. But as you say, the back of the head, side of the neck, those kind of things are super vulnerable, and I can see why in sport fighting they've made them, because you could accidentally, you know, kill someone. Sarah Mandel, I'm sick now. Good luck to you, brother.
oh, my friend from training, everybody is catching a cold and it's just going in circles and everybody has to go through it. So I see that.
So in Croatia, is it like springtime there? You got the change of weather.
Yeah. So it's today it was a bit rainy, but it switched like this, and we're in Dubrovnik. That's the southern town. So noses
It's
are running, everything's happening. There's a bunch of tourists. The season has started, so that just puts everything together. And
yeah,
colds are happening.
we're autumn into winter now, so everyone's getting sick as well for the same reason. Change
Right.
of season, we're in the wrong clothes. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he says, demonstrating his nose blowing.
That's a valid technique. There we go.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not going near you. You're obviously infected.
Right,
Stay back.
that was like a funny prank from long time ago. I think it was early YouTube, but it was somebody like picking a fight, and then when they square up, he would just take off the shirt, take off the pants, and he would have like the long stretched speedo that goes up to here, and everybody was like, "Nah, yeah, you go, I'm not fighting you." So there we go. That might do something.
Yeah, not sure I could pull that off.
No.
Maybe 30 years ago, maybe. Yeah. So from your point of view, obviously you're interested in all aspects of martial arts. For you, as a not, I'll call you a non-Aikido person. What value do you think Aikido has as an art? Because originally, and this is something I think is misunderstood, originally Aikido was an art for people that already had a lot of martial arts experience. When O-sensei first started teaching it, all the people that came to him as the original disciples, they were all really good martial artists from other arts, and they saw the value in what he was doing. The problem is now is that it's new people that might not understand what that was about,
Right.
and and it never goes past kata. And the kata were there to demonstrate the things that had the value, but now the kata themselves are more important to be performed like an accurate protocol or dance move, rather than people understanding the things they were actually teaching. You know, the principles underneath, maki and rasen and otoshi and all those kind of things. So, from your point of view, what do you feel that Aikido has to offer? Yeah, from the traditional standpoint, not from the like the Aikijitsu stuff I do.
Right. I was gonna say I would have to go to like two things where one is more on the function side, and that we can then say that's Aikijitsu from like the art of Aiki. And then in Aikido, in terms of like what you could learn from it, and again, it's from my own like understanding of what it is and what I've seen, it feels like on that side, probably the two things specifically that come to mind. One is like when people like Bruce Lee movies and how the common view of like a martial arts philosopher, somebody who's peaceful but could hurt you if they wanted, like sort of that, like I guess it's in the public consciousness type thing. Um, I feel like Aikido has, from the philosophical standpoint of blending and sort of like the joining the energies and sort of nurturing that philosophy, a lot of people could just broadly learn from that. Because I used to think, before I even did try any aikido techniques or whatever, I would think and talk to like other jiu-jitsu guys, and one of them said, for me, the best aikido I could see is some like drunkard getting angry and trying to fight you or do this or that, and then that person de-escalates the situation, talks to the guy, and 10 minutes later they're sitting on a wall chatting about life. To him that's much more worthy than, look, I did a karagashi in a rolling session. So that's one side I'd say that I feel Aikido has value. And the other is for, as you said, what if you did so many years of judo and you've got busted up this, that, whatever, and you still want to do martial arts, you still want to practice combative movement and practice this idea and philosophy, but do it like everybody takes like a piss at Tai Chi guys doing stuff uh, at all age in the parks. But a lot of them are like 90 something and are probably way more fit than all like people who critique that. And it's, if you keep doing MMA and just MMA, it you're gonna have to retire very early compared to other professions you could have.
Yeah.
Aikido, I feel you could do until the day you die. So
Yeah, I mean, the rolling does, you know, it's one of those things you have to keep up. I remember my sensei said that he was told by the Japanese, you don't take ukemi after 40, after age 40, and he stopped rolling because of that. And he said he always regretted that. And what he thinks they meant now was you don't take ukemi for the sensei, so you don't let yourself get hammered around hard. But
right,
he's
right.
yeah. So every single class we do the same warm up pretty much, unless I've got someone there with a, you know, or we've got a lot of people with knee injuries or something. But we do the same warm up and we go through a rolling routine. Again, the video's on the channel of about 9 or 10 different rolls, and I always lead that off. I will do that until I can no longer stand, because the one of the physical benefits of, and also the mental aspects of not having a fear of falling is massive.
Oh yeah.
And the process of being able to roll and stand up, your body has to go through a complete process which squeezes the lymph glands. It you know, you're rotating your body through 360. The weight transference, you're supporting your entire body weight on small parts of your body for a fraction of a second. There's all of these dynamic tension things which are, and kinetic chaining things which you have to do to be able to roll properly, which the kind of things you lose as you get older. But
Yep.
it should be, you know, this is a skill set. At one point I was trying to get Aikido into schools, and it was just too hard to
Ooh,
do, unfortunately.
ooh.
Actually, on
I commend that you even tried it. So
it's
hats
just
off.
trying to get past the bureaucracy of it was just too hard, but we gave it a go. And you know, one of the things we were saying is that you know, people understanding de-escalation, understanding by training something that hurts, you do it to them, but then you know they're going to do it to you. So it puts you in the other person's position. That gives bullies that separate minds. You know, at least they understand what they're doing. Because I think people that are bullied quite often are being bullied at home or whatever, and are just repeating the cycle. So it's a reminder of the cause and effect. But just the fact that people can roll, people playing sports are out in the playground, they trip, they don't just put their hands out like this and get broken wrists. You know?
Right.
Uh, so
Zenpai.
that, you know, yeah, yeah, and it's just understanding, and quite often people won't be able to do it when they first start, so they have to go through a process of proprioception and kinesthetics and stuff, where they have to learn what the shape looks like, be able to visualize it, and then be able to feel what it's like when they eventually get it right, and remember that to make it internalized and have muscle memory. And that's
Right.
uh, you know, that is a magnificent life skill to have, because if they can go through that, they can apply that strategic process to anything else. Learning a skill at work, learning a musical instrument, learning how to cook, learning, you know, driving a car. The same neural pathways will have already been activated. So the quicker we learn stuff like this, the better. You know.
Right. Absolutely. And the Aikijitsu side, I just remembered that I forgot about that. um, um, I'd say when it comes to the pure function of like the specific, and I can speak mostly to the techniques that I most often use and that I feel confident in using. And in fact, I pull off at least one like clear typical like Aikijitsu slash Aikido thing every training session we do. And to me, it would be like Koregaeshi, Sankyo, Wakigatame or Ikkyo, Kaiten Nage definitely, Irimi Nage, and I'm probably missing something that I also do, and it's all variations on these as well.
Cool. Yeah. So
Um,
what you'll be pulling off will be the principles that are
right,
taught by the techniques. Yeah.
right. And
You
I'd
know,
say that a lot of
I would
those,
assume, because the minute you put things under pressure, they stop being beautiful. You know,
right,
well,
being
they're beautiful if they work, but it becomes a different thing.
in
Yeah.
a different way, and I think like the beautiful throws and flips absolutely can happen. It's just expecting that to be the standard is wrong. Like, you can get somebody to truly flip over and it can look almost exactly like a typical Aikido demonstration. It just, the stars have to align. You just have to
Yeah.
be a perfect
Also,
moment.
people have to be able to do those high falls, and the reason Aikido people do those high falls is it allows you to your partner to put things on hard without you getting hurt. So it's a training methodology rather than reality. I would never do a high fall out in the street. You
Right,
know, I would be trying to counter or to break out. I mean, it's you get that
right,
wrong out in the street. However, part of our self-defense aspect of what we do is ukemi as self-defense. So if someone is squaring up to you and he pushes you, we do a straight back ukemi, which in most cases gives you about 5 meters distance. If you can do that, if you've already checked it out with your peripheral vision and you've got space behind you, if you can do a big roll and come up on your feet 4 or 5 feet away, and like
yep,
it's the change in their mindset is like, what just happened?
right.
Gives you that little bit of time to just, and then you walk away at 45 degrees, you're not backing away. And quite often, once you've got 5 meters away, that's already the distance for the fight has changed. Within
Right.
3 meters, there's all these different distances for the interaction and the triggering of violence. So
And
it's got its place. It's not just an escape. I mean, ukemi means
yes,
receiving through the body. It's not rolling. It's receiving technique through the body.
and I was about to say specifically on Ukemi, like, like, I have a funny story first regarding that. So it was a few months ago, and we mostly train at like a sport jujitsu gym. Like, we do jujitsu fighting and newaza, self-defense, and then we do MMA type stuff in like after hours, or if we hang out somewhere where we can train, we just train and just have fun. But a lot of times we get like MMA guys and other friends who mostly train at like the local MMA gym, and we sometimes train over there, and it's all like a mixture of this and that. And one of the guys, it's a really cool, like, younger MMA fighter. Uh, he would always come to the training sessions when I wasn't there, and he always wanted, let's roll, let's try. I want to feel the Aikido stuff that you do and this and that. And we finally got there to do a training session, and the rest of the class was doing what they were doing, and we went on the side and let's just do a quick roll, and then we're going to join them. And as soon as we started, and like, everything he does is right, but he's not used to the weird shit that I'm going to do. So right in 10 seconds probably, I just catch a koregaeshi, and what happens? He taps. And then it's like, oh yeah, I forget that even though at their gym they do ukemi, they do all sorts of falls, they don't do it from a koregaeshi or from any of these wrist locks and stuff from Aikido. So we go again, catch the other wrist again, same thing. And I'm thinking in my head, oh crap, like, I don't wanna be an asshole, but like, should I have to tell him just roll? Like, he doesn't yet know how to roll, and it's like, if it's such a simple thing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop screwing with you. If you feel I've got the wrist, just roll. And he did it, and it was like,
Yeah.
and he was doing everything right. He's a competent guy, and probably in wrestling he's much better than me. But just that simple, tiny little thing of not being able to address a simple, like, standing wrist lock.
One of the strengths of BJJ is very early on you learn to go with what's there and try and convert it into something else.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a primary skill. But unless you're putting stuff under pressure, and again, it's another thing within Aikido, there isn't enough pressure testing of what people do. Um, unless you get that early on, you don't find different ways of dealing with things.
yes.
Just out of interest, did you watch our sparring series videos? Have you seen
Oh
those?
yes,
Oh
yes.
yeah, yes.
The
The 4 levels, yeah. So that's something we've put in the last couple of years, just to try and formalize the pressure testing and the randomized training. It's been fantastically successful. Everybody loves it, and the difference it's made to some people has been fabulous. I mean, it's an ongoing, evolving thing. But from what you saw, from your outside of Aikido perspective, do you think it's valuable? I mean, is it on the right?
I think it's at this point, from what I've seen, it's perfect. Like I don't see, and I like that it's like a structured 4-way system, because it reminds me of the thing I talked to Jamie from Jamie Loves Martial Arts, where we talked about how.
Yeah. Is that Jamie Nottingham?
Yes.
Yeah, no, he's a good lad. Yeah.
Yeah, and he made a whole point about like how, and I definitely agree, how free sparring is definitely important, but you lose that funneling and that focus on like developing specific skills for a specific situation, and how important it actually is to sort of go back and quantize bits, and not have it be like, oh, if you just do random sparring there after this and that, and just keep doing that, you're gonna get good and just have the same. No, just a lot of time free sparring can be way too chaotic. You can I feel it's still necessary once and again to just feel what you're doing and explore and this and that, and it all has value. But just doing free sparring, and I come from experience, because when I started martial arts without any gym or anything, I would just put on gloves and hang out with friends and pretend we're Bruce Lee. But we would spar, and a lot of like my early days of martial arts were just free sparring. I had to unlearn so many bad habits because I was just doing free sparring. So the way that you quantized it, I think it's perfect. Like I have to, I'd have to do it
I
again, and
wanted
if
to. They wanted to try and keep the same process. So that, for us, the kata that are in traditional Aikido, they teach an underlying principle, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing it from an elbow grab, from a punch,
right.
from a, if it's viable from that particular attack, then the underlying principle of that technique. So kotegaeshi is about rotating the forearm, and
Yeah.
if that's possible from that particular attack, that particular situation, then that underlying principle works. So for us, our sparring starts off with almost like a sticking hands drill, which obviously from my Wing Chun background, so that's totally about the blending, and it's we emphasized the whole body should be engaged. Your hands are the point of contact, perhaps, but your whole body is engaging, and you're using your body not only um, as a weapon and a connection tool, but also as a sensory organ.
Yes.
And I try to get people to feel where the partner's balance is through their feet rather than just through their arms and shoulders. And,
Right.
Then we escalate it to more of a kazushi judo-esque thing. So you're holding on and you're actually trying to trip people and get people on the floor. And that's a bit more, a bit more aggressive, but obviously there's still rules. Then we do a speed and distance drill where you're squashing mosquitoes, just fingertips, nothing half faster, harder than that. Head, shoulders, knees, toes. And if you're against someone much taller, you can go for their belt as well, because obviously you can't hit the head if you're short. And again, that makes people react, and it gets people used to dealing with much taller people, and what an advantage having a long range has. We've got one particular guy with massive long arms. It's very, very hard to, you have to accept you're going to get hit and you've got to get inside, or you've just got to stay out of range, and then the last one is headgear, mouth guards, fingerless gloves, and get into it,
Right.
And it's been really successful because I think it's helped everybody apply the stuff they do in their kata and realize which of those things may or may not be reliable for them under pressure. And it doesn't mean they have to write those things off, because that could change. They might get a better understanding of that principle or whatever, but it gives them an idea of what their current toolbox is. And for me, that's the way I want my guys particularly to develop, so that they're as safe as they can possibly be throughout their development. And as their skill sets increase, they can broaden that and hone in on the things that are more likely to work for them.
Perfect. You got a seal of approval from a random MMA guy. So, yeah.
I mean, that's nice, but honestly, if you've got a YouTube channel, as I'm sure you've already found out, you stop thinking about, yeah,
Right.
if people like what you're doing and they interact with you in an intelligent way and they're contributing something, that to me that makes my day. That's wonderful. I had a guy comment on a video yesterday or day before. Obviously not an Aikido person, and he was quite honest about the fact that Steven Seagal makes his stomach churn, and you know, which
Right.
I have no surprise whatsoever. He's a terrible human being. He's singly responsible for the growth of Aikido and for the Aikido descending into,
Right. He did.
yeah, yeah, massively responsible for the rise and fall. Obviously other things as well. But when you get someone like that who then says, "But I like what you're doing and I like the attitude," and then he asked about, "So what's the stuff with all the weapons, the swords and stuff? That seems stupid. No one's used a sword for 400 years." So I kind of explained the reasoning behind it. It's to train body movement and distance and stuff. We had this long comments chat, and at the end of it, it was like, okay, that was really useful. I'm hoping he got something. I found out some really interesting stuff about how people view things, but also about what he was doing, because he was also cross training. For me, that's the correct use of the internet.
One of my favorite things that I experienced with running this YouTube channel so far is when I get a disagreeing comment and or just any point of disagreement, and we have a long, civil, nice, respectful conversation. It's the best thing of all time, because it's so hard to find that on the internet. Everything is up to 11. Every point is made so much worse than it actually is. And because when I
accountability, I think people like all these people will say, but and there's they could be a 12-year-old kid for all you know that's never done anything, and it's
right,
in my experience, all the people that know what they're talking about don't normally make the salty comments.
yeah,
Because they've got enough experience to realize that everything has some value in the right context. So,
right.
but
There's also a flip side to this. I just remembered one of my absolute favorite. I think it was the first guy that you could classify. I don't like the typical terms like hater, but it's like the typical person who seems to not enjoy what you do, but is constantly there and always is watching. And it's almost like, oh, you're my number one fan. I love that. But how it all
we those, yeah.
how that one got started was the funniest thing of all time. I clipped for YouTube Shorts a piece of sparring session that I did with one of the other MMA fighters, my friend that's also a martial geek, and we were doing some, I think, like stand up, like kickboxing plus takedowns, kind of like Sanda rules, but we sort of had a bit more freedom in some aspects or whatever. And at the end, I managed to do with headgear and like elbow pads and everything. I managed to perform a proper Nikio, not just like an just like wakigatame, but like actually get both the wrist and the forearm where the elbow to do like the split. And he dropped to the knees because it was probably one of the first time I actually managed to do a proper full-on Nikio in like a live sweaty sparring session.
Yeah.
And the comment was, that stuff doesn't work. And it's like, it's not a demo. That's a sparring session. You're looking at it with your own eyes. And it's like, that doesn't work. But
people have got that mindset. They're just trying. All I can think of is that people like that are just trying to make themselves feel better about themselves by getting some attention, or I don't know. I don't understand it. Quite often now, we'll just block people from the channel, or
right.
what we do is I forgot what it is. Someone else does a lot of this stuff for me, but you do something where they can still see the videos, but no one else can see their comments.
Ah, all right.
They can, like I'm not sure how it works. As I say, I'm not a techie, but yeah, they still get their thing fed, but they don't upset everybody else, and
right.
it is what it is.
Yeah,
No,
and
it's been Yeah, go on, Karen. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could always speculate about what's happening behind the thing, because somebody might just be a frustrated dickhead. But the same comment could be just said by a person who's probably a nice guy or whatever, but
Yeah.
hadn't scratched further from the surface and just saw, oh, Aikido guy challenged the BJJ guy and got destroyed. So that's all Aikido. And it could be just that guy, and
Yeah.
we don't know. Who cares? Right.
You know, it's that whole thing of trying to put yourself in other people's shoes as well. Part of that de-escalation thing is that sometimes, uh, you know, you don't know what their life is like. So, and all they're doing is making asshole comments. I mean, what damage does it do? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
Right.
It's, you know, so you kind of have to, you know, you kind of just kind of have to roll to it. I must admit, 4 years ago, whenever we first started the channel, um, the first kind of quite personal comments, you kind of you know you're out in the garden, you kind of think, what an asshole thing for
All
someone to
right.
say, and it bugs you. But then you think, doesn't matter. Who is he? You know, and people. I had a couple of people kind of say things like, "Oh, blah blah blah," and I was like, "Well, look, you know, the address of the dojo is on the website." I said, "You're more than welcome to come down anytime. We you know, you'd be welcomed like a guest. You know, try and de-escalate that." But no one's ever turned up to the dojo. No, so all these people that are doubting the thing should come and try the thing.
Right. It's
You know?
always so simple.
No, I've seen some stuff. I think you did you were commenting on a. In fact, we briefly talked about it the other day about some of the key guys that
Yeah.
seem to be doing these mystical stuff. And again, I've come across hundreds and hundreds of key people, and I've never experienced anything uh, that I would attribute to anything outside of very good biomechanics and um, body manipulation and timing, and also in a little bit, in some cases, a little bit of kind of not hypnosis, but just a group of people that believe in this person's power so much that they're kind of expecting something to happen. You know, you get these guys that suddenly jump because their ki has gone through their body. I mean,
Right.
I'm
And
sure if
and
I stood, yeah,
and
I've had a very senior key guy put a technique on me because I was watching all these people flying around. I'm thinking, and we can I have an uke, please? And I jumped up and he put it on there, and I just stood there, and I thought
right.
this isn't going to go well. And I got in again. I got all sorts of backlash about that from the students, but it wasn't on.
Right.
It just wasn't very good because my expect. And again, I'm almost not contradicting him, but my expectation of what that biomechanical process was and what his students were was different. But
Right.
from a practical martial point of view, the thing is the thing, and if it's not moving the spine and moving the body, then it's not working. But if you're
And
thinking about more from a take it, was it taking their spirit and their mindset, and was it
right.
you know? So it depends on it depends on the
Absolutely.
way you're looking at it. Yes.
That's why my thing is always, what is the specific claim you're making? Because
Yeah.
I can look for value anywhere, and there's value everywhere. And it all
Yeah.
depends, and it gets into like subjectivity of things versus objectivity. And I always look at like these specific things where we're talking about like nuts and bolts of stuff. The really, you can only like appeal to objectivity if you have a goal that's set up. Like if your goal is, I want to be a pro MMA fighter and get to UFC in 5 years, then once we've both agreed on what's your goal, now we can play around. Oh, this is objectively worse with respect to that goal, and it's all about that type of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so to me, like when and even the other side of where I think I'm try to be fair, and I think I am, about the whole like chi stuff. It's like I'm not even claiming explicitly that it's all fake, because I can't prove that. That's giving myself the burden of proof. Like, who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
Likelihood is that it's not real, but it's like different from saying I believe this is fake versus I'm not convinced that it's real. Like those are two separate. It's nuanced, but it is different. So it's all in that type of space. So
Yeah,
you know,
we could change the word martial art or key to religion or to anything else. Anything that requires extraordinary, that's making an extraordinary claim needs
yeah,
extraordinary proof. You know, so let's
simple
not
as
get into that conversation. Yeah.
that. Another 3 hours talking about absolutely everything.
Well, look, thank you very much for having me. I've got to go and eat. It's 10:30 now, and you know, old people like me have to have a meal every hour and a half.
Well, thank you for joining. Thank you for doing this. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
And I hope everyone watching remembers to click the subscribe, and let's get you up to that 1,000 so that YouTube starts taking things seriously. Honestly, the difference it makes, you hit 1,000 and all of a sudden people start seeing your videos.
Yeah, I can imagine. Thank you. Thank you so much.
My
And
pleasure.
hopefully we'll do that whole big Aikido thing with all of you guys. That'd be awesome. Like if
That'd be fabulous. Yeah, and I can recommend some really good. You know, I can recommend some really good people. I'm sure would like to join in, and then
that
we'll have another chat when you hit 10,000 subs.
well, sir, thank you very much. I'm going to brush my teeth and fall asleep. Yeah,
Nice talking to you, Tom.
you too. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.